According to U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, the Chinese Communist Party continues to commit genocide and crimes against humanity against the Uyghur ethnic group. Those remarks coincide with the release of an annual report about human rights in various countries. Kevin Hogan from NTD News Today has more.
The Chinese government continues to commit genocide and crimes against humanity in Xinjiang against predominantly Muslim Uyghurs, among other minority groups.
Blinken made this statement as part of a briefing marking the release of the newest edition of an annual report. It's called the Country Reports on Human Rights Practices. The State Department publishes it to cover human rights issues. It includes details on 198 countries across the world. Blinken asserts that there is a recession of democracy happening in the world, and he said what the Chinese regime is doing is a key example of growing authoritarianism. That is what Blinken calls its mass campaign of repression and genocide against the Uyghurs. The report also described the CCP as an authoritarian state, and it said religious and ethnic minorities are still being persecuted in mainland China and other territories that the regime occupies. And speaking of China, a new report outlines attempts to undercut U.S. space efforts. The Defense Intelligence Agency published the report. It describes how China and Russia would try to counter the advantage the U.S. has in space. A defense intelligence officer explains why.
Russia and China, our primary strategic competitors, are taking steps to undercut the United States and our allies in the space domain. Both nations view space as a requirement for winning modern wars, especially against Western nations, and look to prove themselves as world leaders.
A defense intelligence analyst also points to the two countries' combined assets in space. He said they've grown about 70% in only 2 years. He outlines their ambitions.
Both nations seek to broaden their space exploration initiatives, together and individually, with plans to explore the Moon and Mars during the next 30 years. And if successful, these efforts will likely lead to attempts by Beijing and Moscow to exploit the Moon's natural resources.
What's more, he said that Moscow is now developing a missile that is able to destroy satellites and space vehicles.